We're living in a period where Europe faces sustained threats and sustained hostile activity from certain states. And let me be clear, by this I don't just mean spies spying on other spies, spies following each other around at the dead of night. I mean the deliberate, targeted, malign activity intended to undermine our free, open and democratic societies, to destabilize the international rules-based system that underpins our stability, security and prosperity. Instead of becoming a respected great nation, it risks becoming a more isolated pariah. We want cordial relations with the Russian government and for it to live up to its international obligations, taking its place on the world stage in the rules-based order. We look forward to that day. But our respect for Russia's people and desire for a productive relationship cannot and must not stop us from calling out and pushing back on the Kremlin's flagrant breaches of international rules. Leaders across Europe and the world have taken a stand. They've sent a strong message that the first use of a nerve agent in Europe since the Second World War and supporting and protecting the Syrian regime's horrific use of chemical weapons to kill and maim civilians is simply not acceptable. But also, the Russian government's invasion of Crimea, the taking of territory from another sovereign European country by force, cannot be acceptable. Seeking to interfere with legitimate democratic elections in the US and in France is not acceptable. Attempting to mount a coup against the elected government of Montenegro is not acceptable, and neither is unleashing cyberattacks of the sort that you've already heard about this morning against our countries and institutions, including the attacks that you've heard about against German institutions like the Bundestag here in Berlin. Age-old attempts at covert influence and propaganda have been supercharged in online disinformation, which can be churned out at massive scale and pace and little cost. The aim is to sow doubt by flat denials of the truth, to dilute truth with falsehood, divert attention to fake stories, and do all they can to divide alliances. Barefaced lying seems to be the default mode, coupled with ridicule of critics. The Russian state's now well-practiced doctrine of blending media manipulation, social media disinformation, and distortion, along with new and old forms of espionage, and high levels of cyber-attacks, military force, and criminal thuggery, is what is meant these days by the term hybrid threats. Powerful partnerships are critical to facing down these threats and to keeping us all safe. I hope I've given you a flavour of what these partnerships look like today, but also why we need to keep building and strengthening them. I've said that I'm optimistic of the future, and that's so, but I don't underestimate the challenge. It requires sustained collective investment of effort, grit, and political will. But it's only through partnerships that we succeed. It's by working with partners in Europe and beyond that we find the intelligence fragments we need to get ahead of terrorist attacks. And it's by working together that we deal with attacks by the Russian government and other states and shine a light through the fog of lies, half-truths, and obfuscation that pours out of their propaganda machine.